Pharmacy technician Lisa Chen prided herself on accuracy. 15 years of measuring medications had taught her that precision could mean the difference between healing and harm. But when she opened the shipment of insulin for diabetic patients and detected an odor that shouldn't exist, her Army Chemical Corps training overrode 15 years of civilian instincts. The smell was faint, almost undetectable, but Lisa had spent 8 years working with chemical agents designed to be undetectable. Someone had contaminated an entire batch of insulin with a substance that would cause organ failure within weeks, targeting the city's most vulnerable patients. Lisa faced an impossible choice: report her suspicions and reveal her classified background, or stay silent while hundreds of diabetics slowly poison themselves. Welcome to Hidden Legends. Before we begin this powerful story of courage, skill, and forgotten heroism, tell me in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. Westfield Pharmacy sat on the corner of Main Street and Fifth Avenue, a small independent pharmacy that had served the community for over 30 years. Inside, behind the white counter, Lisa Chen worked with the same quiet precision she'd maintained for 15 years. At 47 years old, Lisa was the kind of employee every pharmacy owner dreamed of having. She arrived at 7:30 a.m. sharp, never took sick days, never complained about overtime, and had never made a single medication error. Her short black hair was always pulled back neatly, her navy blue scrubs were always pressed, and her hands moved with mechanical precision as she counted pills into orange bottles. The other staff knew Lisa as reliable but distant. She ate lunch alone, never joined conversations about weekend plans or family drama, and when asked about her background, she'd simply say she'd worked in logistics before pharmacy school. Her coworkers assumed she was just naturally quiet. Dr. Patricia Morse, the pharmacy owner, appreciated Lisa's consistency. In 15 years, Lisa had never questioned a prescription, never challenged a doctor's orders, never created problems. She was the perfect employee, invisible, efficient, and utterly dependable. But there were small details that might have seemed odd to someone paying attention. Lisa's hands never trembled, even when handling controlled substances. She could identify pills by sight faster than pharmacists with twice her experience. And sometimes, when examining new medications under the microscope, she'd pause just a fraction too long, as if remembering something she'd rather forget. Young pharmacy student Jake Morrison was completing his internship at Westfield. He'd been observing Lisa for 3 months, trying to learn from her expertise. Jake noticed that Lisa had an unusual way of examining medications, not just checking labels, but actually analyzing the physical properties of pills and liquids. "Lisa," he'd asked once, "how do you spot counterfeit medications so quickly?" "Experience," she'd replied simply, not looking up from her work. Tuesday morning started like any other. Lisa arrived at 7:30, unlocked the pharmacy, and began preparing for the day's prescriptions. The delivery truck arrived at 9:15 a.m. with their weekly pharmaceutical shipment. Lisa signed for the boxes and began the routine inventory process: antibiotics, blood pressure medications, pain relievers, everything normal until she reached the insulin shipment. The moment she opened the temperature-controlled container, she froze. There was a smell. Faint, barely detectable, but unmistakably there. Sweet, with a metallic undertone. Most people would have dismissed it as the normal smell of medical supplies, but Lisa's training kicked in immediately. Her hands, steady for 15 years of civilian life, began to tremble slightly. She knew that smell. She'd encountered it 8 years ago in a classified laboratory at Fort Detrick, Maryland, when she'd been tasked with identifying chemical agents designed to be undetectable. Lisa closed the container and stepped back, her heart racing. After 15 years of peaceful routine, her past had just walked through the pharmacy door. Jake noticed her reaction immediately. "Lisa, everything okay?" "Fine," she replied automatically, but her voice carried a tension that hadn't been there minutes before. "Just checking the temperature logs." But Lisa wasn't fine. The smell was wrong, And if she was right about what she was detecting, hundreds of diabetic patients were about to receive insulin that would kill them slowly, over weeks, appearing to die from natural complications of their disease. Lisa waited until Dr. Morse left for lunch and Jake was busy with customers before she returned to the insulin shipment. She pulled on latex gloves and carefully opened one of the vials, using the pharmacy's microscope to examine the contents. Under magnification, the insulin looked normal: clear liquid, proper viscosity, correct labeling. But that smell persisted, and Lisa's military training had taught her that the deadliest weapons often looked exactly like what they were supposed to be. She carefully extracted a small sample and subjected it to the pharmacy's basic chemical analysis equipment. The readings showed normal insulin composition, but Lisa knew these tests weren't designed to detect sophisticated chemical warfare agents. The phone rang. Westfield Pharmacy, this is Lisa. Hi, this is Margaret from Dr. Peterson's office. Is our insulin order ready? We have 12 diabetic patients coming in this afternoon for their monthly supplies. Lisa's blood ran cold. 12 patients. If she was right, 12 people would go home with contaminated medication today alone. The pharmacy served over 200 diabetic patients total. Can you give me 30 minutes? I'm just finishing the quality check. Sure, no problem. Thanks, Lisa. Lisa hung up and stared at the vials. She had 30 minutes to decide whether she was paranoid or whether she was looking at a bioterrorism attack disguised as routine medical supplies. As Lisa examined the insulin more carefully, memories she'd buried for 15 years began flooding back. Fort Detrick, 2008. She'd been Staff Sergeant Lisa Chen, chemical weapons specialist with the Army's 15th Chemical Battalion. Her unit had been tasked with developing countermeasures for enemy chemical agents. Lisa's specialty was detection and analysis, identifying weapons that were designed to be invisible, odorless, and undetectable by standard equipment. She remembered the briefing about binary agents, chemicals that were harmless individually but deadly when combined, designed to pass through normal security screenings. She remembered the experiments with delayed action compounds that would metabolize into toxins days or weeks after exposure. And she remembered Project Nightshade, the intelligence reports about terrorists attempting to weaponize common medications, turning routine prescriptions into assassination tools. The smell from the insulin matched something she'd encountered during those classified experiments: a stabilizing compound used to bind delayed-release toxins to common medications. If someone had contaminated the insulin supply, patients would appear to die from diabetic complications weeks later with no immediate trace of poisoning. Lisa's hands stopped trembling. Her military training was taking over, overriding 15 years of civilian caution. Dr. Morse returned from lunch to find Lisa standing by the insulin shipment with a grave expression. Dr. Morse, I need to speak with you privately. Is there a problem with the shipment? Lisa took a deep breath. For 15 years, she'd kept her past buried, living as an ordinary pharmacy technician. But if she was right, her silence would cost lives. This insulin is contaminated. We cannot dispense it to patients. Dr. Morse looked confused. Contaminated how? The temperature logs are fine. The seals aren't broken. It's been chemically tampered with. Someone has added a compound that will cause delayed organ failure. Patients will appear to die from diabetic complications weeks later. Lisa, that's a very serious accusation. How could you possibly know that? Lisa met her employer's eyes. Because I'm not just a pharmacy technician. I'm a former Army chemical weapons specialist. I spent 8 years learning how to detect exactly this kind of contamination. The silence in the pharmacy was absolute. Jake, who had been restocking shelves, stopped and stared. Dr. Morse's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. You're what? Staff Sergeant Lisa Chen, retired, 15th Chemical Battalion, Fort Detrick, specialized in detection and analysis of weaponized medical compounds. Lisa continued, her voice steady and professional in a way her coworkers had never heard before. Dr. Morse, I need you to contact the CDC immediately. This insulin batch shows signs of contamination with a delayed action compound designed to cause organ failure. If I'm right, this is either a terrorist attack or someone is targeting specific patients. Dr. Morse sat down heavily. Lisa, in 15 years, you never mentioned. I came here to leave that life behind. I wanted to serve in peace, help people get better instead of analyzing how to make them sick. But I can't stand by and watch people die. Jake approached cautiously. Lisa, are you sure about this? Lisa turned to him. Jake, I've spent 8 years learning to identify chemical agents that are specifically designed to be undetectable. This insulin has been contaminated with something I've seen before in classified settings. If we dispense this medication, we'll be accessories to mass murder. Dr. Morse was already reaching for the phone. What do I tell them? Tell them you have a potential bioterrorism event. Tell them your pharmacy technician is a former Army chemical weapons specialist who has identified contaminated insulin. Tell them to send a hazmat team immediately. As Dr. Morse made the call, Lisa began carefully sealing the contaminated vials. Her movements were precise, methodical, not the actions of a pharmacy technician, but of a soldier trained in handling dangerous materials. Jake watched in amazement. Lisa, you've been here 15 years. Why didn't you ever say anything? Lisa paused in her work. Jake, when you've seen what chemical weapons can do, when you've spent years thinking about how to kill people efficiently, you want to forget that knowledge exists. I came here to count pills and help people feel better. I never wanted to be a weapons expert again. But you are. Yes, Lisa admitted, I am, and today, that's what saved lives. The CDC team arrived within 2 hours. Lisa briefed them with technical precision that left no doubt about her expertise. Laboratory analysis confirmed her suspicions. The insulin had been contaminated with a sophisticated compound designed to cause organ failure 3 weeks after injection. The investigation revealed that someone had intercepted the shipment and carefully contaminated every vial, targeting diabetic patients across 3 states. Lisa's detection had prevented what would have been hundreds of deaths appearing as natural causes. Dr. Morse approached Lisa as the hazmat team finished their work. Lisa, I owe you an apology and an explanation to our patients about why their lives were saved today. Lisa shook her head. Dr. Morse, I don't want recognition. I just want to go back to counting pills and filling prescriptions. The only difference is now you know why I'm so careful about quality control. Jake looked at her with new respect. Lisa, you're not just a pharmacy technician. Lisa smiled quietly. Jake, I'm exactly what I've always been, someone who serves. I just used different tools before, that's all. 3 months later, Lisa returned to her regular routine. She arrived at 7:30 a.m., counted pills with mechanical precision, and went home quietly at the end of each day. But now her coworkers knew that behind the unremarkable exterior was someone who had once developed countermeasures for chemical weapons and who had used that knowledge to save hundreds of lives. When new pharmacy students asked about Lisa's expertise, Dr. Morse would simply say, "She has more experience than you might expect." And Lisa preferred it that way. She'd served on battlefields where the enemy was faceless and the weapons were invisible. Now she served behind a pharmacy counter where the mission was healing instead of harm. Some warriors trade uniforms for scrubs. They trade analysis of death for dispensing of life. But when the moment comes, their training, their dedication, and their quiet heroism remain exactly the same. So now I ask you, have you ever met someone like Lisa? Someone who seemed ordinary but carried extraordinary knowledge? Someone who served in silence until the moment their expertise was desperately needed? Share their story in the comments, because at Hidden Legends, we believe the greatest heroes often work in the most ordinary places. If this story moved you, subscribe and help us honor the quiet guardians who watch over us every day. We'll see you in the next one.